Thou that sleepest, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. A government which robs Peter to pay Paul can always depend on the support of Paul. Do we ever live in interesting times, folks? And I can't wait to get into the show today. We're gonna cross a border for B.J. Edwards.
Oh.
We're gonna get into the Chemtrails conspiracy. Yeah. Hey, listen, you're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor do either of us hold a doctorate degree in anything, not that would make any difference, our opinion, of course. We only ask that you as an individual and or corporately not take our statements or those that we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend that you act on them as if they were facts, although they might very well be just that, facts. But again, that's our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, repeat anything that you hear today, and that any information or opinion we present is meant for the good of the order and by no means intended to harm anyone. Good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Good morning.
You excited about today's show? Huh?
Well, that and actually being in the studio with my good buddy,
Yeah.
BJ.
Yeah. Shut that door.
And shut the door.
Shut the door.
Keep out the devil.
Yeah. It's
It's our clubhouse.
yeah. A noisy clubhouse.
Yeah.
Noisy clubhouse. Down to earth solutions
Noisy.
in the first hour. And then we're going to talk about chemtrails. We call it Chemtrails 101 in hour number 2. The conspiracy theory about chemtrails, I found to be quite interesting. I can remember going out a couple weeks ago and look at the sky, and I think it was early morning, and I saw, a streak. And then I went out about 3 hours later, and it looked like it was multiplying like rabbits. Just crazy. We'll talk about that second hour.
Yeah.
First hour, there's a lot going on, folks. A lot going on. Here's something that, please share this with whoever you know in the political arena, all the way up to the new president or old senators. I don't care. Musk and Ramaswamy, DOGE. These geniuses. Did you see them going into the Capitol? Man,
No,
walking in there so prideful and so loose, and wow. Can you imagine taking these two fellas down to the North Carolina area or Eastern Tennessee and using their efficiency down there?
Why not?
Yep. They have over 30 days. They have over a month to get something initiated down there, and we definitely need it. I have so many conflicting stories about what's going on down there. FEMA in, FEMA out, FEMA taking trailers away when they need, and we're trying to get trailers down there. It's absolutely amazing. And where do you get the truth? I mean, we have people on the ground down there. Betty's been down there.
Hard to know.
Yeah. Clay, I talked to Clay the other day.
We're talking about the two guys down there. Here's a 2-minute video
Okay.
of a guy that talked to JD.
Very good.
Maybe
JD was down there, right?
Well, I don't know yet. Was he?
So, I posted an hour ago, hey GD Vance, we got a lot of stuff happening up here, love to talk to you. And within minutes, you guys got his attention, he reached out to me, and I just spent a half hour on the phone with his team. It's a little crazy to me that this is the first in-depth conversation I've had with a politician about this event. After, 8 weeks now? I mean, I've talked to senators on the ground, at the airfields, at the airport as I see them, but a sit down with a team to actually dissect how we can fix the problem. And that's what we talked about mostly is, like I always say, you know, if the rules are hurting people, we change the rules. And we basically talked about what rules need to change in FEMA to actually get the help people need. You know, like I said, if we have the money to buy people's land, to give it away to green zones, then we have the money to pay people to rebuild their houses. Actually, rebuilding a house is cheaper than purchasing the land. The land's usually the expensive part. And we talked about how the flood zone rule makes no sense, especially up here in the mountains where we're not going to see another flood until next hurricane season in the worst case scenario. But yeah, I mean, they were really on it and cared about understanding what I had seen up there. I just can't believe that I'm talking to the freaking next vice president of the United States of America about how to fix this versus local senators, local representatives for the state level, and even like county commissioners. No one's called me. No one's picked up the phone and said, hey, what are you seeing out there? Except the new vice president of the United States of America. A little wild. It just shows you, though, why you need to get involved in your local and state elections. I think 2026 is our next round of voting. I think March, you can start getting into your local political agency. I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm going to find out because I'm definitely going to get involved. And I think there needs to be happens a lot of education on how to get involved. And I think I'm going to start posting about that going into next year. But anyhow, thank you, JD Vance. Thank you to your team. Your team is amazing, by the way. You've got some absolute monsters helping you run this thing. So they were super intelligent, asked the right questions, and I could tell they care about the American people. And that's something we need more of. So thank you again.
JD Vance to the DOGE plan in
go.
North Carolina. You know, I was thinking about, you know, they're not expecting another flood like this probably ever, but isn't there something in the Bible about in the days of Noah? Huh?
Something about that, yeah. That was a guy named Sean Hendricks.
I don't know whether I'm getting you on verb or direct or okay. There we go.
Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. Yeah, Sean Hendricks. I don't know much about him. He looks like a guy to make some contact with, and I love his advice about getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
Just another doer.
Yeah, folks. Let me tell you something. Christians, here's the deal. You're either going to be involved in politics or politics is going to be involved in you. It's like oxygen. You can try to hold your breath, but you're eventually going to have to breathe. And politics dictates your everyday life. And what we've been doing is we've been letting non-Christians make the laws. So how you doing right now?
Non-Christians are I like to differentiate, like people talk about democracy versus republic. I like to differentiate between politics and government. You know, politics is a game they play, but government is what they should be doing. Governing, you know, watching over things. So anyway, yeah, you got to play a political game, I suppose, to be heard. Lobbyists and all of that stuff. But government is, you know, they follow the rules. We got a constitution, ruled by law.
They used to.
They used to.
Yeah.
They don't follow the rules anymore.
Yeah, we're in an amoral and unjust society. And folks, we always talk about the family, the first institution created for the benefit of man, but it's one of three. And one of those three is the government. And here's the deal. Jesus needs to be the head of the family. The second institution is the church, and he needs to be the head of that. And the third institution is government, and he needs to be the head of that. If he's not, well, take a look around you, see what's happening. I've got an article. I live in Ohio. In Ohio, we say it's the heart of it all. And what is happening in the local school district where I am and school districts around here is just it's shameful. I mean, it really is shameful.
It is. And
if you go to church, you get the mercy ministries. You have what, 10, 24 foreign ministries, and we're all overseas, and we need to be here in America working. I mean, there's the mercy ministry, yes, but the mercy ministry is growing incredibly because we're not taking care of the prophetic ministry. That's where you get involved in things. I think that the gentleman, I don't care whether he's a Christian or not, the gentleman's engaging in the culture. Again, you're either going to engage in it or it's going to engage you. You can make decisions about what's going to happen in your child's future, or you can let somebody else do it. It's kind of like what we do as Republicans and conservatives. We'll elect our man to office, and then we'll go back to our caves and we'll start singing Kumbaya and get in touch with our God feelings. And then 2 years later or 4 years later, we come out of our caves and we see, oh no, there's all kinds of problems. How did that happen? My guy didn't do this. My guy didn't do that. Yeah. Well, guess what? It's really up to you. It's we, the people, the founders, Christians, by the way, the founders got it right. They knew what they were doing. And they set up our government with biblical standards, folks. Check it out. Wow. Anyway, we'll get into that and others. I want to talk about that, the public schools in the Ohio area, but I want to give a little bit attention to headlines because that's always part of our program while we were gone. Steve Dace, he's a good man. Headlines: Oversight Committee conducts hearing in Census Bureau for refusing to ask if residents are U.S. citizens. I would think that would be important. I don't know. Election integrity begins with you. It's from the Abandoned War Room. These are all headlines. Why are hunting laws stricter than voting laws? I love just putting one item up against another says an awful lot. It brings things into reality. Enraged voters pack meeting on illegal vote counting in PA. This is what's going on in your country, folks. Village People founder, this is good news, says the group would seriously consider playing live at Trump's inauguration. That's easy for you to say. As many of you know, I'm an Ohio State fan. And of course, Mr. Anderson roots for the team up north, which whipped the Buckeyes last Saturday.
Go blue.
Yeah. Well, and I hate to admit it, but that team up north just scored another victory. You didn't think I'd come up with something like this, did you, Mr. Anderson? Here's the headline. University of Michigan discontinues diversity statements in hiring practices. Not Ohio State, Michigan. Colleges and universities across the nation are rethinking their gung-ho promotion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and not just in the red states. This week, University of Michigan Provost Lori McCauley announced that the school will no longer use diversity statements in faculty hiring, promotions, and tenure. That was after a Board of Regents meeting. Wow. Here, Southwest Airlines agrees to end DEI employment practices in response to a lawsuit. Why do we wait until the damage, folks? Why do we do that? You know who we're harming here? Think of that the girl Chloe, I can't think of her last name, they tried to they did transition her. And then she woke up. We haven't woken up yet, but she woke up. She's been disfigured, folks. Cannot live the life that she now wants to live. Here's another good news. Abortions in Indiana dropped 98%. Yeah, you heard that right. Abortions in Indiana dropped 98%. The abortion ban in Indiana is working exactly as intended by helping women find better alternatives and protecting the lives of babies before birth. Folks, the law is a teacher. The law is a teacher. Enforcement of law remains a concern, however, as outlined by Indiana Right to Life President and CEO Mike Fitcher. The 159 abortions reported to Indiana Department of Health during their year-long period ending September 30 marks a 98% drop from the 9,529 reported during 2022. And this is, we'll take a break after this, and this is from the whatever category. 62% of Americans oppose Hunter Biden's pardon. Fetterman wants Trump pardoned. Says New York case against him was politically motivated. And this one more thing before we go to break. This is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy, and it challenges my Christianity, folks. It really does. Was 7.3 magnitude earthquake off California coast actually a detonation warning from Russia? We're going to talk about conspiracy theories in the second hour. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call, and good morning to y'all.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
That down a little bit, Mr. Anderson. I think that's a little loud. We in Ohio here are the heart of it all. Folks, panel, unmute yourself. I want you to comment on this. I live in an area, and I've talked to this a little briefly. I'll remind you, there's an organization called LifeWise. It's a Christian organization. And what they have done, and by the way, this is legal in the state of Ohio, yet what they have done is they go into schools, and children have free hours. So they bring the children out of the school, they bus them, they at their own expense, bus them to an off-site, generally a church, and they teach them about Jesus Christ. And they've been doing this for a year or so. Well, in my local school district, they decided to get rid of LifeWise here in Ohio, locally. And they took public comment. Didn't make any difference. They'd already made a decision what they were going to do. And after that public comment, they were concerned about the bullying that was happening from Christian kids coming back and intimidating students, indoctrinating them with Christianity. Oh, Lord, forgive us, right? So they took LifeWise out. A month later, yesterday, I read this report. Public schools are quickly becoming satanic temples. Folks, I went to school board meetings for 10 years. They are indoctrination centers. Take a look at how we score against other nations. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be proud of what the other nations are doing. We're indoctrinating children. Yeah, you see that during Thanksgiving and you'll see it during Christmas, right? Tense between the older generation and the younger indoctrinated generation. Edgewood Elementary in Marysville, Ohio, has rolled out the red carpet for the Satanic Temple's new Hellion Academy of Independent Learning. I am kidding you not. This is a thing. This is not a rumor, folks. This is a fact. They've initiated a Hellion Academy of Independent Learning. Well, what will that all be about? What do you think? An actual program named HAIL, H-A-I-L, is now part of the school day, offering kids off-campus lessons from an organization that openly mocks Christianity while claiming to promote compassion and empathy. Diversity. If this doesn't raise alarm bells, you're not paying attention, folks. The Fox isn't just guarding the henhouse. It's hosting workshops on critical thinking and empathy while sharpening its claws. Of course, they'll tell you this isn't about indoctrination. No, 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 no. This is about secular values. By the way, secular humanism is a religion. Supreme Court. Secular humanism is a religion. And we're talking about diverse educational opportunities. Translated, anything but Christianity. Just like it's about equity when they teach your kids that gender is a social construct and that men can get pregnant. Just like it's about equity when they teach your kids that men can get. Gender is a social construct. Public schools have long been the breeding ground for every godless ideology under the sun. Nothing new, of course. They pushed evolution as gospel, secularism as enlightenment, and queer theory as liberation. Now they're just being more honest about it. The Satanic Temple isn't the beginning. Oh, let me get that up there. Of the problem. It's the logical conclusion of decades of public education bowing to the spirit of the age. Think about this. This is the same system that demands kids recite their creeds of secularism every day. You're an accident. They teach thanks to evolution. Remember the 4 things? Life has no meaning, evolution. That's key. That's the basis. That's the foundation of government-run schools, public education system. And then morals are, whatever you want them to be. Man, not God, is the measure of all things. And of course, the state is your daddy. You got to get rid of the family to destroy a nation. Take a look at the shape of the family today. Wow. They teach thanks to evolution. Your morality is subjective, they insist, thanks to the death of absolute truth. Your gender is fluid, they declare, as though confusion were a virtue. And now, the very organization that celebrates rebellion against God has waltzed into public schools with the blessing of the administrators, offering lessons in diversity and creative expression. What exactly is creative expression in the context of the Satanic Temple? Drawing pentagrams, writing essays about how Lucifer was misunderstood. The euphemisms write themselves. Of course, everyone knows that this isn't education. It's indoctrination. Plain and simple. And yet parents keep sending their kids to these schools, convinced that it's just another day in the classroom. But if we're completely honest with ourselves, well, we know the answer to that, don't we? Folks, I attended school board meetings 20 years ago. Actually, almost 30 years ago. And what they're doing here is exactly what was happening in government-run schools 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. It's been a transition. Remember the 60s? Now, what happened in the 60s? They took the 10 Commandments down off the walls, didn't they? Took prayer out of school. Removed, in my humble opinion, common sense from the walls and the classrooms. And look what we have now. We have children who don't want to even bother to get married. And heaven forbid they have children, because what are those children going to do for them, right? A me generation. They don't need God because they have their daddy, the government. Amen. And what do we do as a church? I'm going to bring Norm in. Norm, come on in, brother. Save me.
Okay. Well, when they remove the Bible, which is a source of truth,
Mm-hmm.
and what I've learned, as you move away from truth, you move toward extremes. Okay.
Really?
And,
I haven't
and
noticed.
we saw it gradual, and now we're cutting off their body parts. But again, it's back on the church.
It is.
Back and, the families, even good, supposedly Christian families that attend church, and they send their kids off to these places and just trust the the ungodly to train them, and they do it because so many of them, the family is so interested in materialism to where the husband and wife, or where the wife is having to work also,
Hmm.
and let the schools train their kids. And we've let this get a stronghold. We've let evil get a stronghold, and the longer it goes on, the harder it is to change. And very difficult, but it can be done. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of prayer and a lot of repentance.
I was asked on a podcast that I was interviewed on this week, when did all this start with regards to the family, the problems with the family? And you kind of touched on it, Norm. It goes back to the early 20th century. But I think the real heavy duty portion of it started after World War II, or actually when World War II, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, which World War is it 2? When World War II started, because men went to war and women went to work.
Right.
And then after that, women didn't necessarily go back into the home because they wanted to keep up with the Joneses. So it became, over a period of years, decades, that both parents were working in the family. And then the government took advantage of it and taxed them to death, to the point where both parents have to work in order to raise the family. And then you had the no-fault divorce. I think that started in California with a fellow by the name of Ronald Reagan. I'm not sure, but I think it did. No-fault divorce, which you have one foot out the door and one foot in. We'll get to you after the break, JC. And now anyone can marry anyone. I could marry a tree and declare it on my income tax. This is total insanity, but it is getting away. The Bible is a blueprint. And one of the things that the Bible does that I recognized some time ago is that it explains natural laws. It brings them out in terms of what civilizations need to do. Now, you can take the first 4 for this conversation out and then start with the next 6. And the first thing they talk about is the family. And then stealing and killing and all those things that we know inherently are wrong. And they are counterproductive. We know that. How do we know that? First of all, the Bible will tell you that. But we all know that we have this software system we're born with, that we know the difference between right and wrong. You don't have to tell me that a guy kissing a guy is going to upset me. Okay. The first time I saw that happen, wow. I don't know whether I got sick, but I was ready to. But it's events like that just confirm the Bible. And when you take it out of the classrooms, the federal government was the first institution to put the Bible in the schools. They paid for it. Why? Well, the founders, they wanted separation of church and state. Whoa, wait a minute, what? And folks, it's not separation of church and state. It's a separation of the state from the church. Leave the church alone. And the founders were not talking about Islam. They were talking about Christianity. They were not talking about Hinduism. They were talking about Christianity. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, here I am. I was going to say that idea of Christianity, they just assumed that everybody agreed with that and was on the same page. It wasn't something that they didn't recognize they needed to write it down. It was already a, what do you call it? Like,
it was a known.
It was a known. It was an agreed idea. They had different ideas about Christianity, because you had your
different interpretations,
different denominations. Each colony was built by a different denomination.
All Christ-based, though.
All Christ-based, Bible-based. That that's where the founders were. They referred to the Bible for their instruction.
Amen.
Well, 1844, the Supreme Court ruled that all government schools must teach the Bible. It was a 9-0 decision.
Yeah, but we're evolving. We're evolving.
Yeah, we've done good, haven't we?
We're evolving up.
Devolving.
Yeah. In spite of the second law of thermodynamics, we're evolving up, right? The second law of thermodynamics is things tend to disorder, folks. People get old, cars rust, that sort of thing. We're going to bring JC on, take a break first. And ladies and gentlemen, there are opportunities abound here. We're not taking advantage of them. These are learning experiences. God wants you to engage the culture and not just necessarily as a nurse.
Well, just days after President Joe Biden issued a sweeping pardon for his son Hunter, sources say the president is considering even more pardons. And these could be for the people who might be targeted by the incoming Trump administration. An ABC News source close to the president confirms that Biden and his senior aides are discussing pardons for current and former officials. They include retired General Mark Milley, Senator-elect Adam Schiff, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and former Republican Representative Liz Cheney. Throughout his campaign, Trump vowed to enact retribution on his political enemies.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
What? What are they? What? Really? Come on. I'm gonna go down to the State House and ask them for a full pardon for anything that I might have done since I've been born. And they're going to say, well, you can't do that. Well, yes, I can, because the president of the United States but only the president can do that. Well, yes, but the president is breaking ground. Why can't I break ground? He works for me anyway, right? I demand a pardon for anything that I've ever done in my entire life. And you know what? Anything I'm going to do in my entire life. There you go. That takes care of it. JC, come on in, brother.
I was just going to say that. How about a pardon for what I'm about ready to do?
Yeah.
They keep restoring these little kids. They're going to have to pardon me. So here's the question of the day. This is the month of December, right?
Yeah.
And it's the year 2024, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the definition of a Christian?
Somebody follow. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is what we got to start asking, because everybody says, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. Oh, I'm a Christian. That's why I just ripped two people yesterday in my car lot here. They were going to buy a car. They left. They didn't buy a car. I don't even care. Because they got a son they want to buy a car for, and we're just nudging him along. I said, quit nudging him and start kicking him. I said, he claims to be a Christian? She said, oh, yeah. I said, no, he's not. He's lost. Oh my gosh, this lady's getting mad at me. And it's a friend of mine. And she's like, she comes here every election cycle. She's the one who invited me to that church 2 weeks ago to speak about Pastor Bill. She loved me a couple weeks ago. I don't think she loves me yesterday. So here's the deal. You just said the fox is not guarding the hen house. He's in it. The fox is in our schools.
Yeah.
And how many, just like the last couple of years going to school board meetings, I'd get 150 people at Freightown on that mass deal. 150 people, 120 at Mount Vernon. And during my 3 minutes, and 80 at East Knox, and every one of them, and during the 3 minutes, I'd say, let me ask you a question. Is there a pastor here tonight? Raise your hand if you're a pastor. And everybody's looking around. They're all looking. I said, just what I thought. None. I said, so if you're in a church somewhere and you claim to be a Christian, go ask your pastor this Sunday why he wasn't here at the school board meeting to defend these little kids, to rescue them. It's like Pastor Bill has always said, we were rescued to rescue. Why are we not? Then he also preached a message about the 21st century Christians today. They're not Christian. They're religious people. So here we are, took FCA out of the schools. And I said this when this started, and don't nobody get mad at me, but I'm going to say it. I said, this is what's going to happen with LifeWise. You people all ran out of the schools because the government ran you out of there. All you little Christians scared to death. Shut our FCA down here in Mount Vernon, the largest FCA in the state of Ohio. The largest
FCA? What's FCA?
Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Okay, thank you.
Freshwater had the largest one in the state of Ohio, the largest in little Podunk, Mount Vernon. So when they destroyed him, all the Christians, they sent a couple $100 to John to help him, give him some money, but ain't none of them would take a stand. None of them. That's what destroyed that man. I even got to speak in FCAs. I'd go in there knowing ahead of time. John Freshwater, he coached wrestling, and I did middle school football in the Mount Vernon Middle School. All the kids knew us. All the kids loved us. Well, not all. There might have been a few. So I would go at the lunch breaks because you had 3 lunch breaks, so you could do FCA. Either they go out as soon as they eat their lunch, they could go out the recess door or go turn left and go in the music room. And we'd usually run about 40, 50 kids, 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. You're talking 150 kids every Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the school day. Not outside trucking them down the road to some church that say they're Christians. What are they teaching them? So here we are doing FCAs. I would go in intentionally. We'd sit on the stage in the cafeteria and watch 150 kids eat their lunch. Each group, 6th, 7th, and 8th. They get done eating. We'd run down to that room down there. We'd be down there high-fiving them, inviting them into the FCA. You get 6 or 8 minutes. And I always went because I wanted to see what some of these pastors and youth pastors were going to come in and teach them. But I knew we had a lot of no-shows. John be sitting there. He look at his watch. He said, well, JC, looks like you're up. We got no-showed again. I'm like, all right, cool. I grabbed my Bible and then I'd go. And you just put something together quick. You know what I mean? It's like, but you only had 6 to 8 minutes. And them kids just loved that. So they ruined that. And now here we are with our bright ideas. Let's do LifeWise. We'll take them down the road to the Nazarene Lake Home Church. And it's like, now here we are. You just said a little bit ago, you said they took out LifeWise.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a minute. It was never in there. It was already out.
Okay. Yeah.
Huh?
That makes sense.
Let's take it out. Now all of a sudden, well, we're taking out LifeWise. It's never been in the school anyways. You're just trucking a few kids down the road. They're still going to come after it. They're still going to try and destroy it because they hate Christianity. They don't want us teaching these kids. So when are we going to stand up? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's time to fight. It's time to lay down your life, unsheath the sword. Like Pastor Bill always said, he'd say, we got to be able to storm the gates, push back the darkness, unsheath the sword, take out your sword, which is your Bible, not a real sword, and cut them. He said, you cut them. He said, now it's going to sting. When you cut them, it's going to hurt. But then you pour some salt in that wound, and boy, it's going to sting, but it will heal. It's time to unsheath the sword. That was for Pastor Bill today.
Amen. Hey, bring Norm in just a second. John Freshwater was a teacher in a public school that's out in the weeds, folks. It's not in downtown Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland, or Memphis, Tennessee. Was that look? The NEA, National Education Association, runs government schools. They run them, and if you don't think there's a consistency between what happens in a big city and a small city with regards to public schools, you're crazy. You're crazy. John Freshwater, I think it was about 25 years ago, had a Bible on his desk and was running the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And his biggest problem was that he was being effective. It was threatening the powers to be. The secular humanist had a Bible on his desk. Oh, dear God, what a sin. And they kicked him out. They kicked him out, took his career away from him, tried to destroy his family. John's doing okay now, all right? Okay, he's doing fine. But what about the children that never got a John Freshwater to teach them the difference between right and wrong? Go ahead, Norm.
Well, I don't know if you know Ryan Walters. He's the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma. They are teaching the Bible.
Yep.
They're teaching it. Now, of course, LifeWise, them being able to take them off school to teach them, that was a 1952 Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah.
So Can they not take that to court and win that issue?
We're still playing defense. They're and nice guy. They've already been accused of offending, so they have to be very careful. And while they're being very careful, you heard what I read about Marysville, Ohio. That's what the enemy is not waiting. They are not waiting. They see this opportunity and they jumped in. I've not been able to get a hold of anybody directly from LifeWise in terms of what's going on, and I have been involved in other wars and other battles. But that's probably a good thing to do for me, is to find out what LifeWise is going to do about this. I mean, I was there at the school board meeting, and the parents were begging, almost crying in front of the school board to allow this to go on, but LifeWise to go on. Yet the secular humanists, man, they were threatening lawsuits against the school. They were threatening lawsuits. If you put this back in here, if you don't take this out of here, we're going to come after you. So for whatever reason, and this is I'll call it a diverse school board, and an absolute diverse superintendent and treasurer, an all female school board superintendent and treasurer. So they're very diverse. Like, is that diverse? Would that be diverse? I'm not sure. I'm confused. Well, I guess we call it reparations of sorts, wouldn't we?
How about calling it ignorant?
Yeah. Your words, not mine.
Yeah, I know. Well, we learn from Jesus, there's a time to turn the tables over, and get folks' attention. And if you remember Nehemiah, after he'd rebuilt the wall and came back and things were in all disarray, he said, I pondered it in my mind. He pulled her hair out. So anyway, maybe it's hair pulling time, Jim.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. We have a 2-minute warning today, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 minute.
4 minute, 4 minute, 2 minute. Yeah. Thanks, Norm. Something that needs to happen, folks. We've talked about North Carolina. Here's another item that needs to happen. And I'm going to read from an article from Kurt Schlechter from Town Hall. He starts his article by saying he is delighted that the alleged President Joe Biden pardoned his scumbag, perverted, drug-addicted, corrupt kid. This is Kurt Schlichter. Not saying I disagree with that, not saying I agree with that. And there's not anything I can do about it. We all knew this was coming, especially knew it when Joe Biden promised he wouldn't do it. That made it a certainty. Good point. Kurt correctly notes that in today's America, there is no rule of law, and therefore there is no point in being outraged. It was inevitable. It was also going to happen, and now we need to take advantage of it by, on January 20th, 2025, President Donald J. Trump pardoning every single J6 defendant, every defendant, all of them. Well, everyone, but he shouldn't do it because Joe Biden pardoned his scumbag spawn, but because these patriots were framed and subject to a 2-tier justice system by the deep state. No local jurisdiction. They went to Washington, D.C., a separate country. We've talked about that before. Separate peoples believe in separate things. How could you get a fair trial when you couldn't even defend yourself? It wouldn't allow you to defend yourself, but it didn't make any difference. You were guilty until somehow there was a miraculous way they could prove you innocent. It's noteworthy. If you nearly burned down Washington, D.C., Portland, or another city, you didn't go to jail for more than 5 minutes before getting out with a ticket, which was then dismissed. In fact, many of these leftist rioters got paid cash settlements by the government. Are we crazy? But if you wandered around the Capitol, which belongs to you, by the way, and not to be establishment, you got sent to prison on shaky legal theories after being tortured in D.C. dungeons, and they do torture there, folks. I've read a couple articles and emails about they turned up the heat on the J6ers. Now, by turning up the heat, I'm talking about 80 to 90 degrees. Try sleeping 80 to 90 degrees. You had no fresh air there, folks. 80 to 90 degrees. Your own sauna, right? Wow. Kurt goes on. You get special treatment, which I just talked about, especially harsh, unfair, and unequal treatment. Trump must pardon every J6 defendant on day one, all of them, every single one of them, no exceptions. Well, that is, except for collaborators working for the FBI, like the likes of Ray Epps, who somehow got a sweetheart deal compared to the other people. If you walked through the Capitol, pardoned. If you and a bunch of friends rolled out Nancy Pelosi's massive liquor cabinet, pardoned. If you threw fists with flatfoots, pardoned. I don't care what the facts claim they did. They didn't get treated the same as leftists, and the leftists got a pass, and therefore so much of the J6 pardon them all, every single one of them. Federal law enforcement deserves absolutely no default to an assumption of good faith, zero benefit of the doubt, and absolutely no credit for its claims. It has disgraced itself. They can't be rewarded, or it'll be repeated. The Democrats and their allies must not be allowed to win. Winning means theirs walk, ours suffer. A hard pass on that. To allow to stand even one of the fraudulent and disgusting convictions obtained in the city, it's 95% Democrat, in front of the biased judges, ensures this travesty of selective persecution will happen again. This in spite of many Republicans who would be found in the temper tantrum, yelling and crying like little sissies that they are. The president should tell them to shut the hockey sticks up. It's time to grow a spine. It's time to take stand for what's right. Our people were kidnapped at gunpoint, dragged into filthy cells, and kept locked up without bail for years, away from their families, before facing biased judges and charges that have never been brought against anyone else. Our good friend, Pastor Bill Dunphy, is now in prison for speaking out and up against the very thing that we're talking about here. Folks, this was a grave injustice, and it cannot stand. But pardon it only the first steps toward partially righting these wrongs. There must be accountability. Not just a pardon, but accountability. How are we going to treat these individuals when they get out? They've been separated from the families. What are we going to do with the families whose son or daughter committed suicide because of the pressure the government put on them, with many people smiling and giggling about it? President Trump should formally apologize on behalf of the government of the United States. Yes. The perpetrators must be fired or prosecuted if they violated the law. Yes. Justice, justice, justice. And then, but we'll pardon them. We'll pardon them before they ever go to court, right? These guys are good. And then President Trump should direct this, that his Reform Department of Justice begin settling the legitimate claims of outrageous law enforcement actions and prosecutorial conduct. Is this too early in the morning for me, Mr. Anderson? It's time to settle the J6 legitimate civil rights claims for millions of dollars. They were held without bail. Government flunkies abused them in jail, in and out. Those scumbags used to be investigated, and they need to be investigated and prosecuted, including the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt. When I say pay, I mean millions of dollars. Evidently, Mr. Schlichter has done civil litigation for 30 years. These people would be compensated to the tune of millions of dollars each if anyone else besides the federal government inflicted that kind of abuse on them. J6ers, pardon them all. You can't give back years of their lives. You can't resurrect the people who have committed suicide, but you can pay the victims or their heirs. And you can get you can set a precedent so the federal government will never, ever, ever do this again. Hunter Biden was always going to be pardoned because Joe Biden was always a crook. The J6 defendants, as well as the abortion protesters, crypto bros, school board moms, and social media dissenters persecuted by the disgraceful Department of Justice and other disgraceful federal agencies, must be made whole. They deserve at least what Hunter Biden got. I like the fact that the gentleman did not pull any punches. How do you affect restitution? How do you give back the days that that father whose son was just born and he had him in arms for maybe a week or two and then gone for years? Fathers separated from their families, their children. Christmas time. We need to think about things like this, folks. I haven't heard a whole lot with regards to what the president's going to do. We're making a lot of assumptions. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, just a small thought just popped in my mind. Just, are there any J6er families in North Carolina without their dad there to help them? And how really, really horrific that would be for some families.
Amen.
I don't know, but you know, out of what, 1,500 people arrested, and are they ignoring those families purposely?
I think it's more than 1,500, but yeah, I don't know what the total number is.
I mean, it's
into the hundreds, probably into the thousands, to be honest with you.
The state of the world is really sad when you spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Amen. Amen.
And yet we're supposed to, well, you know, what is a Christian? We're back to that question, aren't we, JC? Who left the room for a minute, but
yep.
You know, that's a real question. And when people say, I'm a Christian, what do they mean? And what are they going to do with that?
They're going to nurse victims of their lack of work, their lack of doing.
You're checking on our upcoming guest?
Yeah. Looks like they're going to be there.
All right, good.
We got a few minutes. I don't know what you think about all this. No. I don't know what you're going to do about all this. Hope that this is Do Radio, folks. We're not giving you all this information so you can just, okay, have your favorite adult beverage and sit down and relax and know the things. What I'm giving you, folks, is opportunities. I'm giving you opportunities. We're giving you opportunities. We have a lot of folks that listen to this program that are doers. And that's what we need, doers. Not to do is to do. Okay? And what you just cannot sit by. It will come to you. The discussion I was having earlier is basically politics, which a lot of Christians believe, well, Jesus wasn't involved in politics. I'm not going to be involved in politics, but Jesus was involved in politics.
Well, he was involved in lives.
Yeah.
He was involved with what affected people's lives and encouraged them. And whether you call it politics or whatever, it's life.
Yep.
And what helps and what holds life together. I don't really want to. It's a political thing. It's a human thing. It's the right thing.
Amen. I think Norm has a comment to make.
Yes. They are still arresting J6 people. They arrested several more this week. They haven't slowed down a bit. So it's horrific what they're doing. And I just
see arresting people than helping people that are in dire need
in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, et cetera. Yes.
Yeah. So we gave Africa $1 billion
for something. I don't know what that was.
What? Even if you're doing, what are you supposed to think about all this? I mean, seriously, what are you supposed? This is a bizarre world where wrong is right and right is wrong. What are we supposed to think about this? And when I talk to my fellow Christians, I visited a church a couple weeks ago, and the pastor sent me an email saying, "Hey, let's get together and let's talk." I'm going to send him a bio before I do that, and I imagine he might change his mind about wanting to meet. I'm just guessing, but he might change his mind. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. He's look at you.
How to clear your meeting schedule.
Yep. Form or find a group. We're going to take our 2-minute warning here shortly. Form or find a group of like-minded individuals. And folks, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't have to be Christians. It does not have to be Christians. You can use others. Like I said, we have this software package that we're given. We know the difference between right and wrong. They might not know that they're going to be Christians, but they're headed in that direction. And watching you work positively might just be that straw that breaks the camel's back and turns them into a fellow Christian. You don't know that, but them watching you do nothing.
You almost said that name.
Yeah, what's that?
Oh, camel hair. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, let's go to that 2-minute warning, Mr. Anderson. I'm sorry.
All right. If I can find it. Here we go.
Hello, my name's Fred Humphreys, Special Agent of the FBI. As the Christmas season, as the holiday season falls upon us, the potential for scammers, fraudsters, and hucksters to put their disasterly plans into action increases. One of the dangerous new trends that we are seeing this year is the spread of misinformation, disinformation, and malination. Are those even words? Anyways, basically it means stuff that we as the government have decided shouldn't be spread, lest it confuse the ignorant masses of the peasantry. Which would be you. Currently, one of the biggest players in this realm of misinformation is this character right here. This mouse recently wrote this piece of propaganda, entitled Mega Mouse to the Rescue. In it, he claims that January 6 was a peaceful protest by patriotic Americans who are simply protesting the stolen election of 2020. On that note, the 2020 election was the most secure election in the history of the world. Believe me. Oh, and as far as it being peaceful, roll that clip. See, this is a fiery riot where the sacred capital of the United States was being burned to the... my apologies. This was actually the mostly peaceful protest by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. John, the enter tape. There we go. That's more like it. Look at this. This right here is worse than Pearl Harbor. I must urge you, do not buy this book as a gift for your kiddos or grandkids or even that crazy ultra mega listless vessel Republican friend you might know. You know, the kind of person who wants safe and secure elections and says Christ is king, loves the Second Amendment, and believes children should be taught reading, writing, and arithmetic instead of social emotional learning or critical race theory. I lose sleep at night thinking that such people like that live in our nation. My kids did enjoy the book and pictures, though. I mean, look at this. Oh, those rats. They just get me every time. But we enjoyed it simply for the purpose of studying propaganda and seeing how amusing and dangerous it is. I was even able to get a signed copy. This Christmas, instead of buying Mega Mouse to the Rescue for your kids, why not buy something more educational, like Karl Marx' Communist Manifesto? I know Mega is a good-looking mouse, but remember, he is a domestic insurrectionist who nearly destroyed America by walking through the Capitol building, taking some photos, and saying the pledge, and associating with other people who did the same. Once again, I urge you to not visit megamouse.com. Do not buy this book as a gift for anyone this Christmas. Remember, we know what's best for you.
Daddy, can you come read Mega Mouth to us again?
Certainly, my little FBI agent. Daddy's coming. Raising him right. You know what I mean? Not that type of right, you peasant.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
A little yakety during the breaks, aren't I?
Yeah.
I like to talk to myself.
I'm slow on the mute button.
We have a guest coming on. Let me start it off in the right manner. Okay, we're going to talk about chemtrails, and I'm going to give you the current undertow, if you will, about chemtrails. And I got interested in this partially because of Mr. Anderson, and then I ran across a young lady who I started talking to about what she was doing in work and how that went from what she was doing to chemtrails, which was very interesting, but it made sense once I got to talking to her. I can't wait to get to them. But before I do that, here's the chemtrail. Mr. Anderson is going to pay a great deal of time on this today, aren't you, Mr. Anderson? What are chemtrails? This is the undertow. Chemtrails are a conspiracy theory suggesting that the visible trails left by aircraft contain chemicals deliberately released for covert purposes, like climate control and population manipulation. Is there any scientific evidence supporting the existence of chemtrails? No, there's no credible evidence of chemtrails. Instead, the trails left by the aircraft are consistent with the known physics of contrail formation. Chemtrail and contrail, we'll learn the difference between that this morning. Why do some contrails linger in the sky while others disappear quickly? The duration of contrails depends on atmospheric conditions like humidity and temperature. In high humidity conditions, contrails can persist and spread, while in drier air, they dissipate quickly. Why don't you bring our guest on this morning, Mr. Anderson? Tiffany Anderson, welcome to Last Call. Hope you're doing well. Go ahead. I don't know whether we could hear you or not.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. How's my lighting?
You're fine. A little glare from the back. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Tiffany, you have an interest in chemtrails. First of all, what's the difference between chemtrails and contrails?
Well, I don't know that that's my expertise, but what they say is that a contrail will dissipate at a certain point where a chemtrail, I don't know that there's a lot of difference actually, because you touched on something. We're just diving right into this, aren't we?
Yes.
So when you started to talk about the difference between chemtrails and contrails, my wheels started spinning in my head. There are all different kinds of factors to a spray, which are wind, temperature, the chemical compound that they're spraying. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I'm so glad today I happen to be up in Lake Tahoe where they are actually spraying right now behind me. So I was hoping at some point maybe we could get a visual of that. But sometimes people will see a spray program taking place, and they will think they're contrails because they don't see the trail. They don't see the long lines that they're used to seeing. But sometimes they are spraying chemtrails, and people will confuse them for a contrail because of the factors of, are they spraying into the wind or out of the wind? Are they spraying a certain chemical that doesn't linger in the air like some of them do? So it's very difficult actually to tell the difference between the spray when you're just looking at the spray itself. What you want to look at are the planes, how many planes are out there visible. There's usually about 6 to 8 visible, going all different kinds of directions to get a fog. So a fog would be where they're trying to concentrate a whole area, whether it's a county or it's a city, whatever their goal is. They will use about 6 to 8 of them to go crisscross back and forth so that they get a full coverage of spray.
Yeah, patterns, and I want to talk about that because that is what interested me most about you. I kind of started off boom, and then I want to break this down.
Okay.
Your job, one of the jobs that is most interesting to what we're talking about today was you were spraying chemicals to get rid of mosquitoes, right?
Correct. Yes, I used to work for San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control District during West Nile state of emergency for federal funding.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I sprayed, we had a huge list of authorized chemicals that we sprayed. They would be adulticides, larvicides, fungicides, aquacultures, herbicides. So we sprayed multiple different chemicals.
Okay. And what was the process of spraying? You had a county that you oversaw, was that correct?
I worked within a county. There were 25 field technicians with supervise. All of us in total were supervisors, assistant supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
We had three regions, and in each region were about 7 technicians under a supervisor and assistant supervisor.
Okay. And when you sprayed, and you're trying to give the best coverage with regards to the West Nile and trying to avoid being infected, you had a county. What was there a certain pattern to what you were doing in terms of spraying?
Well, every chemical has its own application. Spraying wasn't always a form of treatment. So I had a zone, and within my zone there would be some residential areas, there would be agriculture areas, there would be duck flooding. It would be like the islands where they do a lot of grow crops, mow it down 50%, flood it to bring the ducks in for multiple reasons. So a zone could carry a lot of different potential mosquito sources in it. And within those sources, you come onto the scene, can't kill a mosquito egg. So you always start at the first stage of the mosquito, which is the larvae. And the larvae has 4 different stages to it. And the first, second, and part of the third larval stage, those they eat. They will eat, and so you can actually put a chemical there that they will ingest. Some of the chemicals that you apply will have residuals in it, meaning that like one would be a gut bacteria, and so the larvae would eat it and then explode, and within that, then the new larvae would come up and they would eat that, and it would have a residual for maybe 21 days. Some of the chemicals would have residual for 120 days. And the key was to try to not have the larvae hatch into an adult. So by the pupal stage, that's the 4th stage of the larvae before it turns into an adult, it actually stops eating. So the only way to kill the pupa is to suffocate it. So then we would use a surfactant and oil. We would spray that over the surface, and the pupa could not get its breathing tube up to the air to breathe, and it would die of suffocation. So if we didn't get the mosquitoes in time before it hit the pupal stage and it becomes an adult, then you start spraying larvicides on it. I mean, adulticides. And adulticides, we had 3 different types. One has no residual. The other, so it's just on contact. If you spray the adulticide and then kills it on target, if we miss it, then it gets to live. Then we have the second one that has some type of residual. It could have up to 21 days residual, whatever you spray. Like if you sprayed on the side of the home or any kind of surface and the mosquito came in contact with it, then for 21 days it would have an effective kill. But then
So we have good intentions here in terms of getting rid of a potential disaster or potential illness. The question comes, and this is from one of our listeners, are those pesticides, are they not bad for us as humans?
Absolutely. I mean, they kill, right? If they're okay, a mosquito is a life source, just like us. If it's kill, let me finish my
Okay.
one. Okay, so we were getting to the fogging stage. So let's say you have a highly agricultural area, or you've had an area in a residential area where West Nile had been traced.
Okay. Yeah.
We could set traps all over the county, CO2 traps and light, and then we also had lights that would attract the mosquitoes. And so one of the traps would, the CO2 would draw it, and it would be live. The mosquitoes would be alive when we caught them. And then they would take those live mosquitoes. They would, I think they had about 25 to 50. They'd grind them into a serum and then test it for West Nile virus, test the blood. But we also had the light traps that would attract the mosquitoes. And if we had a threshold of like, there couldn't be more than 25 mosquitoes in that light trap. And if there were, we would go take preventative measures. So then take our cold foggers, and the cold foggers are as close to what I see up in the sky with the aerial sprays. So I just wanted to finish that thought. As far as the chemicals killing, yes. So one of the chemicals we sprayed, the adulticides, is a nerve toxin, and it attacks the central nervous system. So basically, the mosquito gets that chemical on it, and it dies by way of heart attack. So that chemical, if it gets in your central nervous system, of course, it could cause like Parkinson's, all different kinds of things directed to your central nervous system. Then we had one that was a gut bacteria. So a lot of our health stems from our guts and how healthy is our gut. So you have to remember, or maybe I should just let you know, that a mosquito's life source revolves around water. A mosquito has to have water in order to go through its life cycle. If you remove water, the mosquito dies. So these chemicals that we're spraying our crops, we're spraying our waterways, and those do get back into our recreational, sometimes in waterways, and sometimes even our drinking water, because a lot of cities are starting to implement toilet to tap, taking crap water, and they say they clean it and then they put it back into the drinking water system. So yes, those chemicals are very harmful to people, and that is we haven't got this far yet, but I had filed multiple complaints with my employer, and then outside to other agencies like EPA, OSHA, Department of Toxic Pesticides. So
we don't know what effect this is going to have on the public. It sounds like we have well intentions. Gosh, we got to do this. This almost brings back the COVID wearing masks sort of thing to me, or the vaccinations to me. Well, we got to have the vaccinations. We got to spray, because if we don't spray, this is going to happen. With the government in control, is that a good analogy? A bad analogy?
Well, what I came to believe through working at this agency is that pretty much maybe not the manager and the employees that actually perform the job duties. I don't believe that they are out there to control the population, but I believe that actually the chemical creators are there to control the population. I mean, again, it's a life source. If the chemical kills a mosquito by way of heart attack through the central nervous system, we have a central nervous system. It's going to attack us as well. So I don't think that the average person who's out there performing the job, I don't think the agency itself is out there to kill the population, but I do believe that that there is, whether it's the lobbyists or the attorneys, or I just don't think that they care that they're causing harm to the public. We would have people out in the public. So I had an authority. I had the authority to walk onto somebody's property without their knowledge in an agricultural area and go in and inspect their property. And because I was licensed and knowledgeable and educated, I had the right to go on and spray people's properties with chemicals, and they may not even know that I was there. They may not even know that I put chemicals on their property, and I would do that within a whole area. So sometimes they would have a do not spray, you know, they wanted to be, when they don't have any pesticides on there, whether they're growing crops, something, and pesticide free. But in my agency, when I had 3 different zones during my employment of 9 years, 10 years. And during that time, about my 5th year, I filed a sexual harassment complaint. And when I did that, I was relocated to a new territory without any training. And the environment in which I was required to monitor and treat, I had never treated or monitored sources like that before, which happened to be pretty heavily agriculture. So I stumble across a property that has notoriously been a mosquito breeding ground, and now it states on it that they are pesticide free. With no training, like my employer never told me what to do in that situation. How do we get rid of the mosquitoes if that is the source there on the property? So they would actually spray them without, even though the homeowner or the property owner stated and posted on their property, the supervisors or managers would decide that property was going to be treated anyway, or the employee might not even know. So is it nefarious, or is it neglect?
Well, yeah, okay. It doesn't. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're going to have to take a break. We take a break every 15 minutes. Tiffany Anderson, and we'll come back, and I want to take us from the mosquitoes county-wise to the skies worldwide.
Perfect.
BJ Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last call.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Another theory is that chemtrails are well-intended attempts by the government to combat global warming or the depletion of the ozone layer by spraying particles into the atmosphere to deflect the sun's radiation, so-called albedo modification, sometimes called solar geoengineering. And we're gonna have a clip here. We'll probably play pretty explanatory in terms of a lot of the terms we're using. But Tiffany, I want to go from the fields, the county that you're in, and I want to go to the skies. And the reason I'm so interested in this, again, 3 weeks ago, I was looking at the skies and I saw first a stream, and it looked like jets were playing tic-tac-toe. I'd see an X and then look like a zero. And then there seemed to be a pattern developing to all this. And then it expanded and it almost covered the entire sky. I'm going, what in God's name is going on here? So can you help a neophyte? Can you explain that to me?
I will try. So every chemical has its own can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So every chemical has its own what do I want to say? Like let's use a fabric. You know how like you might have a silky fabric and you might have a polyester fabric, how they're all different, that they've got different textures, they're woven. So these molecules and these chemicals are different as well. So these chemicals sometimes will expand and sometimes they will contract. Sometimes so I don't know if what you should observe, what I've observed here. And when I say here, I'm on state line, California state line, Nevada, California right now. And we have a cooperative agreement with California and Nevada, and there's one other state where they agree in a joint effort to pull their money together and to do these sprays. And what they're spraying is the Colorado River. They're following the Colorado River and the snow melt. So I'm up here in Tahoe right now. For some reason, we're not having a lot of snow this year, but they've been spraying. So it almost appears as if they are trying to prevent the snow this year. Why? I'm not sure. But when you go to the grid lines, so when you start looking at the X's and that, those, what they're spraying are metal particulates up there. The one chemical that the Desert Research Institute for Higher Learning, who is the agency who sprays California, Nevada, and the Colorado River, they use silver iodide. Silver iodide is a metal particulate, and that metals conduct. So when they're spraying these grid patterns, they're literally spraying like an electrical grid and a fencing that they're going to send or shift somewhere, maybe to Tennessee, maybe to Florida, maybe this electric grid is going to go all the way over to the Gulf somewhere and create a tornado or a hurricane. And what they use in conjunction with that is also is the HAARP. Now HAARP is HAARP is like it's like a heater with electrons. So and what this HAARP does, it will create these heavy winds. So we'll have really calm day and they'll start spraying in the east. They follow the sun all day. So try to recognize if that's taking place where you see your sprays. But when I wake up in the morning, I live in an area where I just have a view for miles, and you can just see following the sun all day is the crisscross patterns right in front of the sun. So then when the sun hits it, then these electric or these metal particulates are actually making things a lot hotter than normal. Whether it's your pavement, your trees, everything, and it's like it's burning. It's like it's trying to burn. Like what I've observed is I used to spray herbicides, and what I am seeing with these sprays is they're spraying them under the sun, and they're burning our trees. Our forests here in this do not have the scents they used to have, and they also look sickly all the time. So your question was, okay. So the other thing is, have you ever seen this thing where you said you see an O?
Yeah, look like an O. Yeah.
The spiral thing.
Yes. Yeah.
They do the spiral thing. So I explained this one with the crisscross grid where they're sending where they may be sending the spray to storm somewhere. And they're also shifting the water too. So maybe we were going to have rain or we were going to have snow, and they can actually spray it away and send it off to the ocean where nobody gets to collect it. So, but this one right here is normally what I notice is when they're spraying and they do that. And then, so it'll be real calm, maybe till 1 o'clock PM. And then all of a sudden the harp winds come in and push and move the sprays, but also will create like wind tunnels, like little tornadoes, rolling tornadoes that you'll see, going down the road. So I don't know if I explained that well enough, but that's what I think I know about that topic.
Mr. Anderson, you can jump in there anytime you want to, brother. Cold fogging. Yeah. What is that?
Is this Mr.? I don't see you. So, Mr. Anderson, nice to meet you. Anderson's such a great name. So
there's a lot of us. It's a conspiracy.
This is the Anderson Conspiracy Show.
Anderson's.
Nice.
I've been watching these things for a long time. And when we started talking about contrail versus chemtrail, I don't know what the makeup of it is, but I observed many times one plane. These are planes that are at the same time in the sky, practically flying side by side, and one is spreading out a man-made cloud, I'll call it, and the other is just leaving a little trail behind it. And from my view, I see the contrail being very short and very very sharp, clear, like a pencil line, a little lighter, a little wider, of course, but very clear, where the chemtrail lingers for hours.
Absolutely.
And the contrail disappears quickly. And I was looking for it. I had some photographs I had taken myself when I observed these two things together. Well, I lost the photographs. I don't know where they are, but I encourage people to look at that. I said, well, what's the difference? Some people want to explain it as you did earlier. It's the atmospheric conditions and blah, blah, blah. And it makes things wider and last longer versus the other. I said, well, that's not happening when I see these two planes flying side by side. Well, so what's the difference,
What I'm trying to say about that is condensation, it dissipates. But what I was trying to say about that is sometimes they're spraying chemtrails and the chemtrails dissipate pretty rapidly too. And the reason they dissipate rapidly is due to the wind conditions up there, the direction that they're spraying into the wind. A chemtrail can dissipate just like a contrail, but a chemtrail also can spread as well. Contrails dissipate, and I live close to the Reno airport, and we have Sacramento Airport and Reno that fly back and forth all the time. But I don't even see those planes, but I see when you see a chemtrail operation, there will be 5 to 6, to 8 planes out there, and they'll just be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And some of them will have the lines and some of them won't. And that will be because they are, they're spraying into the wind, or they could even be spraying a different compound that doesn't have the effects of the spray. So we had something called a carrier. We would have two times that we would, and one chemical you wanted to use to do the kill, but the second chemical would be the one that made it stick. So there could be two different chemicals being sprayed up there together that when they immerse together makes the thing spread. So like an herbicide for one, we had a surfactant, because sometimes we would spray herbicides in the water. So we would have to, we'd have the one chemical that like the Roundup, or there was another one I can't think of right now, but we'd spray these two together, and one of them would be the bonding agent and the other one would be the kill. And so that's when you see those programs going on and you see the multiple planes, just because something isn't staying doesn't mean that it's not part of the operation. Just to put it out there. But you asked me about cold fogging. Cold fogging is a mechanism where they spray droplets of chemical. It's almost like taking a Aquanet. Anybody remember Aquanet, the aerosol can of hairspray that women used to use?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so basically, it's like taking a can of Aquanet and spraying it out the back of your truck, and you're going about no more than 10 miles an hour, and you do this for about 3 to 4 hours with about 7, and each direction crossing to get a full coverage to fog an area, because this chemical specifically only kills on contact. So you want to cover a whole area and fog it to create a coverage, a cloud cover over an area. That's what coal fogging is.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we go back, I'm going to get a little bit into geoengineering, which is basically what we're talking about here. But what is geoengineering? And we got a short clip that we'll play that I think explains it very well. And I do have questions about, okay, don't pilots know what they're doing here? Or are they kind of like what you were doing, Tiffany? They think they're doing the right thing for the right cause, but there's kind of kickback to it that they don't really know about, or they weren't expecting to have. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. And we are back. Tiffany Anderson. Did it make any, before I get into the geoengineering, did that make any sense to you, Tiff? Just wait a minute. We have pilots that are in the air, and we have people that are loading this into the plane. They have to think something positive, right?
Okay, so I worked for a government agency. There were 25. Mm-hmm. I'm the only person who ever said, I'm the only person in the operations that went against the grain of the employer. Basically, right. We were paid well. So, and then you have health care. Most of these people have family. The difference between me was that they were forcing me out of my job, and I had kids at home, and I was kind of just, I was fighting for my kids. I was fighting for, I was supposed to be licensed under, or I was licensed under the health department. I'm supposed to be a public health protector. I'm supposed to be protecting the public. And I am seeing with my eyes chemical exposures that aren't being reported, deaths that aren't being reported. And this is with my coworkers. So if this is happening on a small scale and they are not reporting it to physicians, to OSHA, to EPA, then this means that this is going on in the public, and the public has no idea why they're, having heart attacks, or why their central nervous system is shot, or why they've got Alzheimer's or dementia. So my point in that is that most people won't say anything. They won't jeopardize their job. They won't jeopardize their paycheck. They're comfortable within their what they're doing. As far as the pilots, I'm sure that we had a lot of training. We had to stay certified, and we had to use our protective equipment. So you think, well, I'm using my protective equipment. I'm making sure I'm following all the precautions, so it must not be harming anybody. Yep. These pilots, they probably, don't, at least in the beginning. I'm sure at some point everybody has their eyes open where they're like, oh my gosh, my coworker over here is dropping dead, or Bob over here, he's gone. Where'd Bob go? People are willing to speak up. And you have to remember this program, or maybe not remember, but let me tell you, this program is a United Nations program. This program, the chemtrails, is not just happening in California. It's not just happening. Where do you live?
Ohio.
Yeah. Okay. Ohio.
So not just happening there. Every state I've been to, this program's been taking place. So then I started a chemtrail group on Facebook, and people from all other countries, Australia, Europe, all kinds of different countries. Africa, they're coming on and they're posting their sprays. So you go, okay, well, this just isn't a county thing. It's not just a state thing. This is like a whole United Nations program. So the United Nations has a lot of power. And when people start speaking out against a program that they have going on that they don't want to stop, people are going to die. They'll, suicide you. So, how willing to lose their lives to educate the public.
You were using chemicals. You had a supervisor. What happened to your supervisor?
Died. My supervisor died. My employer, they initiated a program, and it was a free fish program, handing out free fish to the public. And these fish, they're called gambuzi, and the gambuzi fish, they are raised in the wild. They're indigenous to the wild, meaning they just reproduce like nobody's business out in the wild. So my manager, now always in government, when you can find more to manage, when you can create a new program, that means that your salary goes up because you have more jobs to oversee. Created this program called the Fish Handout Program. They leased some property from our sewage plant, Lodi Sewer, and they created these 12 earthen ponds. They took this treated water, secondary treated water, they put it in these ponds, raise the fish. Well, in type of sewage water, there's still microisms that and they're warm. The water's too warm due to the sewage waste, and so the water was too warm. It was creating bacteria. The fish started dying. They couldn't raise it in the habitat that they had created, so they start bringing in chemicals, and they brought in a specific chemical called formalin. Formalin is used on fish to treat parasites. But something about the formalin and you're not supposed to use a lot, but something about these chemicals that they were using in our ponds with these fish, with the heated water due to the waste, was just making it worse. But the formalin that they were using, along with the other chemicals that they were using, the formalin is a known carcinogen. It's derived from formaldehyde. So used it's a gas form. So what happens is, and then you think about treated water from sewage waste, that's also gas. So you're putting these gases together, and there were other compounds, and my boss died. He was working at that site, and he died. And my employer did not have the permission to have those chemicals on site. They did not report them to the ag department or anybody, and they did not tell the employees. So,
folks, thank you, Tiffany. That's well explained. We have a video I want to show, and it's kind of one of the problems I had is, how can people knowingly, if chemtrails are as bad as everybody say they are, how can people knowingly do that? Why don't they just stop doing it, or why don't they report it? And I'm trying to give you the reason. This is one of the biggest problems I had with ever believing in this, because if this is this bad, why are people so stupid that they're poisoning themselves and other people? And we're kind of getting into the explanations of why this could happen with people not knowing what's going on, or like, stop smoking cigarettes. It's bad for your health. Well, I've been smoking for years, and no, I haven't died. Kind of like those thought lines, and there's other things going into that. But I want to go ahead and play that geoengineering, because this is really, I think, in essence, what we're talking about. Mr. Anderson, if you would, you have it up.
I hope this is a video you were asking for.
It's a lady.
Yeah.
Military veteran, right?
Yes, I was in the U.S. Air Force for 9 years.
Wow. And you came out and blew the whistle on geoengineering, things that you witnessed were going on. Can you give us the real nutshell?
Absolutely. Basically, I had heard of what many people know as the term chemtrails, And I worked in a job called bioenvironmental engineering, and I thought that was insane. And why would we do something like that? Modify the weather by using hazardous materials in our atmosphere. So, and actually the process of trying to debunk it or disprove it, I realized it was actually coming right out of my office, as I was one of the people that was approving the chemicals. And it really shook the core of my oath. And I did a lot of sampling, did a lot of investigation, and I blew the whistle and I got out. And I've now used my credentials, my oath, and my powers for good to help people understand it's very real. It's now openly admitted. There are multiple forms of weather modification. I specifically found the one of stratospheric aerosol injection. And collectively around the globe, we have to understand that it is now being admitted because they're saying it's combating climate change. Well, the climate change we need to be worried about is man-made climate engineering, also known as geoengineering.
And when you say you had chemicals being pumped into the air, what kind of chemicals are they putting out that rain down on humanity, basically?
Nanoparticulate metals, like you had different sulfates and barium and strontium. I know it's probably changed over time. I know they use silver iodide for certain things, but these are the odd part of it was the quantities that I saw them coming in, the form that they were coming in, and it's the same type of materials that I was trying to engineer out of the workplace to substitute with safer materials. And when you notice that what's called the safety data sheet, the information about a chemical of what personal protective equipment to wear, how do you dispose of it, how do you pack it to ship it. When key information is missing, I ask questions, and my questions led to demonization, and I knew I found something I shouldn't have.
That's insane. So these metals are basically toxic for the humans, I would presume, or?
Yes, because it also has aluminum, and a lot of people will tell you, well, these things aren't horrible in small quantities. It's not small quantities, because when you are putting things above us, the dissipation rates are dependent on weather and climate, but it's getting into the food, it's getting into the soil. And around the world, wastewater treatment plants, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, or these toxicants is what they're called, they are not able to filter them out. So if you're growing organic food, are we going to go back to the plexiglass barriers on our plants? I mean, it's horrible. That's why you can ban it anywhere. We've had states in the United States ban it, and that is great to get the ball rolling. But people really need to wake up to it, irrespective of any political party. It's not okay. And you're seeing a huge increase in neurodegenerative issues like Alzheimer's. It's really difficult for people with respiratory issues and asthma. And people are wondering why they have allergies 24/7, 365.
And I liked what you said about that climate change, or the change we experience in weather. Often we can't disconnect that from these geoengineering activities. Do you want to say something more about that? I mean, how do we feel that? Is there proof or so that is definitely coming from that?
Yes, there are places that openly admitted it. Remember Dubai? And then when people got upset, they retracted it, but the can was already opened. And the issue is, I know this sounds silly, but when you watch movies with time change, they say if you do something and something changes, it changes the ripple throughout time. If you are modifying the weather, you are messing with Mother Nature. And meteorology is a very, very thorough study. And I do know a lot of it because of my profession of plotting hazards. But it does not make sense when you are altering nature where things are not naturally supposed to occur. We had massive flooding in California, and we have a system called HARP that is in the United States. And the same people who demonized me 5-10 years ago are now going, wow, because they're finding it's openly admitted in all of our U.S. documents. The U.S. is absolutely not the only country doing it.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, thank you very much for coming out on that and letting humanity know what's going on. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Here with Kristen Megan.
Folks, I'm becoming a believer. And what I'm doing today is trying to get you to nibble around the edges, to tease you a little bit. I brought Tiffany on. Tiffany is not appearing on radio and TV all the time. She's not at that top level that you expect. But I brought her on because at the level she is at, it's the level where most of the listeners on this station are. We're at the due level. We don't expect any accolades. We just notice something's wrong, and there ought to be something to do about it, and not to wait. So I'm around the edges. I'm nibbling, but I'm no longer into that conspiracy theorist area. And I've got a question. I don't know whether you could answer this question or not. What about Berkey water filters? Do you think they could help with this, or they do help with this, Tiffany?
Any measures that you take to either detox your body or to filter your water is good, but you have to remember these are airborne particles, and so
Okay,
not poisoning your water. Silver iodine is very toxic to aquatic life, and so I mean, I have no idea when they talk about filtering water, how small particles are or what the chemical compounds are, whether you can remove it or not. Anything is better than nothing. I would have.
I get that. Or maybe an air filtration system in your home. Mr. Anderson, any thoughts about that video we just showed? And I'm very much a skeptic, but I'm starting to come around to this. It's kind of
we've
getting
been
scary.
Together quite a long time, like 10 years or whatever. And over that time, I poke it a little bit now and then. We make jokes. Talking to my wife about it last night, and I mentioned this a couple of times to her, but think about simple things that you might observe. Tiffany talked about what's happening to the trees, and I see them curling up in the summertime before fall on my trees. Not all the trees, some of the trees. There are certain ones. Another thing I observed, just think back a few years ago when every time you bought a tank of gas, you had to get the squeegee out and clean bugs off your windshield. Have you noticed how often you do that now?
Interesting.
Never thought of it.
Where are the bugs? I don't know. I've gone almost all summer and hardly ever any bugs. Maybe some bird droppings here and there, but even my bird feeders aren't as busy as they used to be. So if you observe your environment and you have some memory left, because I think these toxins are killing our memories too, you might remember, it used to be Bug City. A lot of food for the birds. And
well, that's global warming. That's what's causing it. Global warming is causing it.
I mean, it's hard to pin it down to one thing, really. I mean, you think about all the different things we do. So when you talk about toxins in the water, don't forget about the fertilizers dumped on the fields every growing season. And I don't know what other kinds of things. We do a lot of things to ourselves that are harmful. We don't even realize.
Amen. Hey, we're due for a break, so let's go ahead and take our break, and we come back. We're going to finish the conversation, folks. Again, this is about this. BJ's a skeptic, and you got to prove it to me. The reason I came to the knowledge of the Bible of Jesus Christ is that I tried to prove it wrong. And I've been playing a little bit, tickling a little bit around the edges with trying to prove it wrong here this morning. But at the same time, trying to encourage folks to say, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there is something about this. And this is the reason we don't hear about it. And
there's another question. Well, why? Why would they do this?
Right.
And who are they? And my wife asks me that a lot. Who are they? I'm saying, well, they are those who are not with us.
Want to control? They're those, like I was explaining to BJ about how weather manipulation is on the stock market, and I couldn't really explain how it's a commodity that's traded, because if you can cause a highly agricultural area to be drought, to suffer drought, you can control their crops. And remember how the government used to, buy crops and tell them not, don't don't harvest this, and then we'll pay you because there might be a flooding. Now, flood an area, or they will create a drought. In the state of California, they have created a man-made drought, and by dumping the water into the ocean. So one, they're preventing the rain. Like I said, they're moving the water to another area, and with the weather modifications. But so in California, farmers have been forced to sell their properties, or they're just not able to produce the crops that they once had. And then what happens? Bill Gates comes behind them and
there's that name.
So there's plenty of reasons why. and so I was thinking about I was thinking there are plenty of patents. So you can go, BJ, and you can look up government patents for weather modifications, and with a Google search, and you will find many patents. You can also find historical Disney cartoons that educated and talked about weather modifications. Those are still, so you could put Disney weather modification in a Google search, and you can find that where they clearly talk about the patents and the programs that they were implementing back then. You can go to Operation Popeye in Vietnam, and you can see that they modified the weather and flooded them out there in Vietnam as a war tactic. So, I mean, there is plenty of data out there to support this argument. And they tweak the terminology. When they talk about global warming, yes, they're spraying chemicals in the sky to warm the globe. That's what they're doing. When they talk about modifying the weather, weather modifications, that's what they're doing. They're modifying our weather. If you look in their terminology, I'm trying to think of another one right now. Global warming. Did I hit that one? So in their terminology, they always tell you what they're doing. They always tell you what they're doing to you. Whether you want to believe it or not is up to you. But it's not that, the globe is warming. No, we are warming the globe. That's what they're doing. There's a guy named Dane Wigginton out of Shasta County in California who has a tremendous amount of data and information on his website. He's gone to Congress. He's tried to get this changed. If weather modifications do not exist, then why is Florida right now? Why is Ms. Garcia trying to get a bill passed right now to stop weather modifications? And why was it stopped in Tennessee just not too long ago? If they don't exist, if it's not a real thing, then why are these bills being put into legislation and stopping the sprays in certain states?
Good question. Mr. Anderson, I'll let you answer that. This is BJ Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. There's our break.
Here's our break. Yeah.
We got about 8 minutes to wind this up, Tiffany. So I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson to answer some questions, and then you two can close it out for us.
The why question?
Yeah.
Well, I see that Tiffany is a producer for Agenda 21 Radio with Pat Preston.
Paul Preston.
Okay. I have bad eyesight, so I misread a lot of things. That's why I'm slow on the trigger sometimes going to break and stuff. Anyway, enough of my disclaimer, right? Why
you're working with me? That's enough.
We're dealing with a satanic agenda out there. World government. They want to reduce the population. They want to increase the profits for themselves, and they want control. They want control. They want total control. They think they can do things better than God can in bottom line summary, and forget about God and the way He set things in motion that would last for as long as He chooses, as opposed to, well, let's interfere with that and make it a man thing. That's oversimplifying it maybe, but the the big picture narrows down to, well, I can do it better than God can.
I think it's a little more. Well, not because they are Satanists and they worship Satan, and Satan requires death. God
Yeah.
had one sacrifice, and that was Jesus. And God doesn't require any more death. After Jesus died, we were called to live, but Satan requires death. And so that's what they're doing, is they're trying to kill our plants, our animals, us. They want death. Satan requires sacrifice, blood sacrifice, and that's exactly what's taking place. I mean, oh, we have a new person. Hi.
Yeah. Norm may have to have something to enter here. Go ahead, Norm. You got a quick question?
Well, just to add too, I've seen twice the CEO of Pfizer drug company at 2019 economic forum with the globalists. He stated, our goal is to reduce the world's population by 50% by 2023. So yeah, they're out to kill us, and the they is the globalist, and of course we know China. They've taken over our food. We're down to four meat companies now, and I think China owns most all of them. So yeah, they're. What does the Bible say about the last days? We'll have to work a week to buy a loaf of bread or some wheat or something, I think, and that's where we're headed. But,
thanks, Norm.
But praise the Lord, we've got an answer for it.
Day's wages for a loaf of bread.
Yeah, our listeners read way too much, Tiffany. It's just awful. We got a couple minutes. Anything you plug your Facebook page for us? How do we get over there?
Oh, my Facebook page. My Facebook page is my name, Tiffany Anderson, which is a very common name. So good luck with that one. Seriously. But you can look. I have a Facebook group called Chemical Sprays and Fires on the in the United States. It used to be Chemical Sprays and Fires on the California and Nevada border because we didn't really touch on it very much, but these sprays go in conjunction with the fires. It's funny that Kristen, the video you played, her name's Kristen. It's funny. I sent that to you, but I didn't watch it. I watched another. Funny, she was saying a lot of the things that I had said.
Yep.
Right, and I had no idea. But these aluminums that they're spraying, they're highly flammable. So I do believe these sprays are done to burn our national forest. To, I mean, yeah. My Facebook page, Chemical Sprays and Fires in the United States is my my group. I normally I normally do not do interviews because I'm a little shy, and and sometimes I question myself, but so I produce a radio show for Paul Preston, and I try to bring experts on all the time to address the the fires and the chemtrails are so personal to me because I can see what they're doing. The whole point of it is population control, and we're commissioned to love, and we're commissioned to to look on things that are beautiful, lovely, and we're supposed to focus on the good stuff. And you can't even walk outside and look at your sky without being accosted by bad things. So
what was it? What was your Facebook? We're going to have to go. What was your Facebook page again? Chemical Sprays and Fires in the USA?
United States or the US. I'm not really sure. I think it's United States.
Okay. Somebody asked. Tiffany, thank you very much. You did a great job today. You did help in terms of me, and I hope our audience, in terms of nibbling around the edges of that. They're just, there's something to this. This isn't that easy to explain. Again, thank you very much, Tiffany. This is BJ Edwards along Mr. Anderson. Amen. This has been your last call.
Okay.
Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Frankenskies. Look up the movie Frankenskies.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do Frankenskies. Love it.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.